everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard, and this is Lap of the World. Here in the southeastern U.S., the core driving and track day season is pretty much upon us at this point. So in typical fashion, I am catching up on work that I should have probably done over the winter. Some of the last things we're doing to the NSX just to get it ready to go on its next adventures, starting at the front of the car. So for those of you who have been following the channel for since at least last year, will recall that we replaced the front bumper cover on this car. The original bumper cover the paint on it had really degraded to the point of being kind of an eyesore, thanks in part to some war crimes committed by the previous owner, and then exacerbated by track use and another 100,000 miles since then. But having now gone through the trouble of putting a much prettier bumper cover on the car, I wanted to do something then to protect it as we go into this next driving season, and that meant paint protection film. Now, I shopped the car around to a couple of shops locally, and honestly, I got a little bit of a mixed review. I figured people would kind of jump on that. However, there were factors that experts would consider that I don't, including how well PPF is actually going to work on paint that is pitted to the extent that it is on this car. Even our new to us front bumper cover is not perfect, and I think there were some business concerns about putting PPF on a car that was distinctly imperfect, and then that being all over the internet, giving people the wrong idea of what professional PPF is capable of doing and how it should look when it's installed. Totally understand the business decision. Probably still taking the other car with the more nearly perfect paint to the same shops, but for this car, this was just kind of motivation for me to do it myself, because not only will it be an entertaining experience to see if it's something that maybe I can DIY, but it's also at the price point where I could F this up 3 or 4 times and still come out ahead versus paying somebody else to do it right the first time. So that's where we're at. This is not going to be, I suspect, a how-to video. It's going to be more of a review of the experience of trying to DIY paint protection film. And with that said, though, let's get right into it. The first thing I did was, of course, giving the car a thorough wash. With the NSX now clean and shiny, it was next time to look after the surface we were trying to preserve. This car's paint had already taken a beating prior to our ownership, and the subsequent track use and travel hadn't helped things. You can see that the new to us bumper cover is in much better condition than the leading edges of the hood and headlight covers that we'll deal with another time. After washing, I went over the bumper with a clay bar to further decontaminate the surface, and then I used a trick that I picked up from watching Larry from Ammo NYC to do some touch-ups on a few larger blemishes, practicing on the old bumper cover first to get the technique down. Next, I elevated the NSX to a nice working height with our quick jacks and then removed the corner lights to get them out of the way. With the car clean and in position, I anticipated the need for an extra set of hands, so I called my best friend TJ to come help, since he was also curious about how it would go. We each independently found some instructions and how-to videos from both the film manufacturer, film vendor, and some other DIY outlets. After comparing notes, we pre-mixed the requisite slip and tack solutions, found a squeegee, and got to work. The kit we're installing is a pre-cut pattern of 3M's newest Pro Series film that I found online at North Tents. Neither of those are sponsored statements, but North Tents was easy to deal with, so I don't mind the unpaid mention. The film cost just over $200 as delivered. TJ and I got started by peeling the film off its backing, wetting everything down with slip solution, and that's probably where the step-by-step from us should stop, as we quickly realized the depth of the task that we had undertaken, as we encountered a number of challenges, from difficulty stretching the film to cover the entire panel, to the usual problems of fingers, edge lift, and finding the limit of flexibility with the film, resulting in a couple of tears. Learning as we went, I think the biggest lesson revolved around what was meant by stretch, in this context at least, and how we were supposed to actually work the film into place using the combination of slip and tack solutions to either stick or reposition the film. That, and understanding how quickly or tightly the film would adhere once hit with tack and squeegeed into place. I'd read that having film warm is ideal for making it more pliable during installation. I had turned the thermostat up some in the garage, but I think we could have gone a step further with that, using some warmer hot water to help that cause. Particularly with the upper cover pattern, the complexity didn't do us any favors either, with some spots that kind of necked in and created potential tearing risk that we in fact stumbled upon. The last thing that caught us out was not understanding the importance of keeping the parts we weren't actively trying to stick down saturated with slip solution so they didn't start to tack. Peeling film back up and then re-sticking it can leave glue lines and what's called silvering that are hard for pros and impossible for first-timers to fix in some cases. With all of that said, we did persevere and even managed to fix some of our mistakes after the initial application of the film, having done more specific instructional searching. The end result was that we did get the PPF at least functionally on the car, and in most places it looks pretty good. The film and adhesive actually mask a lot of the fine pitting that I wasn't able to touch up earlier. There were, of course, some flaws, including some of the silvering that I mentioned earlier that we weren't able to work out after the fact, and where we overstretched or tore the film, there are some visible joints. And the film, of course, couldn't mask all of the pitting, so there is still some visible patina. However, the end of the story is that the PPF is on the car, and for a first attempt, it could definitely look worse. So having now been through it and kind of talked through the lessons learned as you were watching TJ and I struggle, where does that leave me as far as a review of the experience of DIYing PPF on the front of the car here? I think we probably did jump in the deep end with a complex panel and therefore a complex pattern that led to some of the struggles that we experienced, or rather exacerbated our lack of knowledge and technique in the process of getting it on the car. But I think if I'm talking to you out there and saying, should you try and DIY PPF, I think it comes down to your tolerance for fiddling and failing. If you don't mind some fiddling and you don't mind messing something up and having to redo it a couple of times to get it right, for doing something the first time, then I say go for it. If you're of that mentality that you're here to learn, and again, if you lay it down and it's terrible, you have at least a period of time and an opportunity to peel it back up without much risk to most paints. But please do your own research there. Single stage paints may be way different than a base clear coat like we have on this car, as far as likelihood of coming off with the PPF. But if you have little tolerance for fiddling and you don't want to do something more than once, then you really should just go and pay somebody to install the PPF on your car. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time, be frustrated, and have spent some money that you can't get back. So I think that's where I would probably, if I was going to put a bow on it, that's kind of where I would land. I think a lot of the videos on the internet of demonstrating how to install PPF, it's either very skilled people doing it and making it look a whole lot easier than it is, or gross oversimplification of the process to make it at a high level, in that, or it's intended as like a supplement to a bunch of hands-on training. That's kind of where I'm coming away from this, looking at that. Maybe if I tried to do just like, a headlight bucket first or the hood first or something like that, kind of a big flat panel, maybe I'd feel differently. I've been like, this is easy, but I suspect not. But anyhow, that's where we're going to call it for today on the DIY PPF, with marginal success. I think in the plus minus, it's a little bit more on the plus. It will do its job. It will protect the front of the car from rocks, sand, other debris and rubber or whatever it might get thrown at it at or on the way to or from a racetrack. So from that perspective, job done. The next thing we're going to do in coming videos, once this cures, we're going to pull the bumper off and then do a couple of other things to the car in preparation for the season that you will see in a future video. But for today, thanks again for watching. I'm Richard. This is Lap the World. We'll see you guys all in the next video, if not at the track.